So I looked at all the data points and then made a decision. And he was very brave to do that. He didn't have to. It would have been easier for him to tell me just to come. And, they might have arrested me. The Democrats might have had me arrested or whatever, but he chose to do the right thing, and he chose to give me a warning that there's something up, and you're at risk. And I appreciate that. And it was part of the reason why I stayed. So I stayed, and I asked for asylum and possible citizenship if need be. And I want people to know I'm a patriot. I believe in the U.S. I worked in the state Senate of California. I worked in the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate. And I worked as a domestic violence advocate. I was trained by Homeland Security. I'm someone who loves my country. So you have to know that there was some pretty dire circumstances for me not to be able to come back to the U.S. And it's heartbreaking. I have a daughter who's grown. I have pets. I had to leave everything behind, everything.
I am so sorry. And like you said, it truly is heartbreaking. As you were talking about this, I could feel my heart sink and I could feel it drop. I'm not as deeply entwined in the world as you are, but from what I've reported on and people I know too, it's a nasty world in DC. It is cutthroat. The knives out there are quite long, so I can't even imagine what you've been going through, right? And like you said, you kind of came onto the scene 2019, 2020, that election cycle. You said your piece and you didn't get the thorough hearing that all the other accusers get, whether or not they have any evidence for theirs. You've now been chased to a foreign nation. Like you said, you're a patriot first and foremost. So in these last few years or so, you've written a book, you started a podcast, but I do want to ask you, Tara, I'm sure you hear people talking about you, right? And of course, I couldn't even imagine that is the most painful aspect, because you know what you know and other people don't know. And they're going to say all sorts of stuff about you. And it's a deeply personal thing, right? When we're talking about sexual harassment. So anything that you'd like to set the record straight on, if anything's been pent up, I'd like to give you the floor on that.
Well, just that, sexual assault is not partisan. All right. It doesn't identify as Democrat or Republican. So it's interesting that like one of Trump's accusers, for instance, had got covers on Vogue and covers on New York Times and was treated quite, well, whereas I couldn't even access any justice at all. And because the person that I accused is a, very powerful Democrat. Now, remember, I came forward when he wasn't close to even being the final candidate for president. And I went to Time's Up, and Time's Up has now been dismantled because of his corruption. One of the reasons it was dismantled was because of my case and because of the way they handled Cuomo, because it really turned out to be a catch and kill for elite Democrats. So what I want to say is, this wasn't just sexual harassment, it was sexual assault. He raped me in a hallway, in a corridor. And he's never had a criminal investigation. There is a police report now that I made to get it on the record. There is the thing that I filed. My mother called Larry King in 1993 and alluded to it. I have witnesses. My ex-husband and my divorce, it's in legal paperwork where he referred to the incident with Biden. So there's legal documents, and that's what they were scared of. There was contemporaneous evidence, and I had witnesses. And that I had told like the day after, like I'm not talking, and some a couple years after, and then, throughout the time. But the ones that were within a couple of days, those were significant, and they were all willing to testify as well. So, you see the pattern of what the Democrats do. If they don't like someone, what they're saying, and it's taking away from their narrative, they eliminate them. Look at Seth Rich and look what's coming out with that case. He was murdered, right? I mean, we need to look at this as a nation, and Americans need to look at their leaders right now, because the Biden is not an administration, it's a regime. And, I know it's controversial to say, but I don't believe that Biden was really elected legally. I think that's been more than obvious, and they're covering it up. And I hope that we have some sort of checks and balances for our election cycle this time around, and they can't rig it.
Oh, I hope so as well. Of course, that's what we're praying for. But like as we've been talking about, the games they play, it's so dirty. It really is so corrupt. The regime that we currently have in D.C. And I think that you are so right when you talk about how basically democracy, as we thought we knew it in this nation, it really is no more. And you sparked my memory, my recall when you talked about the Larry King, when your mom called in on the show. And you're exactly right. That also came out. You have so much corroborating evidence, and no wonder they want to get you, have you gone, have you silence, because that could really topple so much of their house of cards that they've tried to build up over all this time. So many of them make so much money, have so much power because of these fake stories that they have. So to undo those would mean so much, and hence, unfortunately, it falls disproportionately on your shoulders with these complaints and everything else, whether it turns into a lawsuit or not. But Tara, I've really appreciated speaking with you. I know we are out of time, but thank you so much. I know, it's probably late where you are right now, but we really do appreciate you making time for us. Thanks for joining us.